Next item on the agenda is presentation of petitions and resolutions and disposal thereof by reference or otherwise. Resolution 2011-2012-24. Return of excess black bear TIF captured assessed value to the town's general fund. Mr. Angel.
Good evening, Council. For those people who don't know me, my name is Matt Angel. I'm the Acting Finance Director. I prepared a little handout for you guys. Let's see. And while that's going around, I just want to give you an update as to what's going on with the accounting system. As I reported last time, there were some setup issues with it. There are also some programming issues that need to be resolved, such as some reports aren't still totaling correctly. So unfortunately, I'm not able to provide balance sheet or income statement reports out of the system at this time. However, the software company is working on it. What I am doing in the meantime is I'm pulling the data out of the system and I'm running it through my audit software. And so basically, at the next presentation, what we can do is we can, if you guys have some ideas at some solutions to these funding problems, I can run them through the accounting software and show you the give and the take on all the different funds. All right. Now let's go to the handout that I just gave out. The first thing I want to point out is that the 2000 and I think it's the 2008-2009 Town Council had voted a fund balance policy, which essentially recommends to reserve 16% of, which represents 2 months of operating expenses. The number I'm using for calculating that is the 2013 operating budget. So again, they recommend $985,000 as your fund balance. The next item that you need to know is that if we can close out the downtown TIF, it increases the valuation that's being used to calculate the tax rate, and that essentially reduces the tax rate by 18 cents. Okay? Now let's go on to the 3 different scenarios, and what I try to do here is I try to show it each scenario. The first column is the general fund, and the second column is the water fund and what the impact is there. Now the first scenario is again voting the same way the 2008 Town Council had voted, and in that particular case, the general fund at year end should come in about $1 million of unreserved fund balance. At that point, we could probably take about $71,000 and reduce the tax rate with that. Okay. However, the water fund would take the brunt of it, and you can see we're estimating about $400,000 at the end of the year. Okay. And again, let me just kind of go through each of these numbers so you understand what they are. The first number is what the unreserved fund balance is at the end of April, which is a couple days ago. Then we added in what we're estimating for revenues, subtracted out what the expenditures are to the maximum of that available budget, and then any closeouts or reservations that I have to record, all right, to come up with the ending numbers. Now if we switch to scenario 2, which scenario 1 would be the best for the general fund, scenario 2 would be the absolute worst for the general fund, and it's a situation that we're in right now. Essentially, the numbers are the same. However, you can see on the general fund side, there's a reservation for $535,000, and essentially that reduces your unreserved fund balance to about $129,000. We would have to make up $856,000 in order to meet the minimum set by the 2008 Town Council. However, in the water fund, you can see it would have an unreserved fund balance of about $933,000. Now, if we move down to the third scenario, and again, this is the split the baby scenario. In that particular case, we wouldn't have a reserve because there would be a funding source for that $535,000. It would end up with an unreserved fund balance of about $860,000. And we would have to make up somehow $124,000 to meet the minimum of the 2008 Town Council. However, the water fund wouldn't be so greatly impacted. I'm estimating about $665,000 of unreserved fund balance. Now, as I said in the last Town Council meeting, what I'm recommending for the board to do is to come up with some ideas. Gary came up with some ideas last time, but really kind of negotiate amongst yourself and come up with an adequate resolution. Right now, scenario 2 is really, it ruins the unreserved fund balance for the town, and you just kind of need to steer it in a better direction.
Can I just propose some ground rules for this? Since Councilor Zank's not here, and I would rather have all councils here for this because I think this is a big vote, but I think what we need to hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, is other potential sources of revenue, for lack of a better term, that can help fill this gap, correct? Or pay for.
Well, it would have to be sources that are within your
Right.
powers.
And so you are the referee to determine whether, to let us, not
I
determine, but let us know from your
Yeah.
perspective whether it's within our authority or not as a council, because I don't want to overstep our authority.
Okay, agreed.
Councilor Branch.
Matt, I understand the resolution for the 16% or the 2 months. Gatsby requires 1 month?
I don't think
Or-
GASB has
well-
a recommendation. It's the DRA that has
Okay,
the
DRA recommends
about 16%.
it is that high.
Yeah.
Now, and the only reason I'm looking at scenario 3, just so that the council's aware of what my thought process is that we could be in scenario 3 and easily cover a 1 month, 8%, probably even closer to 12% of a fund balance if we use scenario 3. Am I understanding that correctly, or?
Yeah. You're really within striking distance of hitting the
Yeah, and
16%.
And the council is the one that originally set that 16% limit. We certainly have the right as a body to decrease that if we so choose, or keep it at 16 and just wait for it. I mean,
Agreed.
so, I mean, that's my thoughts on scenario 3. I firmly believe, as you stated, scenario 2 is, I personally would not consider scenario 2. I would consider at this point scenario 1 or 3, whichever one.
I do
council-
have to, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt. I do have to point out that under scenario 2, if we were to fund the $535,000 now the tax rate, it represents 72 cents on the overall tax rate. That's how much it would go up.
Scenario 3 would represent
No
no
impact.
impact.
And then, but under scenario 3, if you were to also close the downtown TIF, you would reduce the tax rate by the 18 cents.
And we could do that under scenario 3, as we could do under scenario 1, correct?
Yes.
You done,
I'm
Councilor?
all set, thank you.
Councilor Wright.
No, Matt, there are no figures in here for the excess black bear
Yeah.
TIF captured?
That's my thought, too.
The black bear TIF? No,
Yeah.
no, because I'm assuming, I honestly don't have a good gauge on the direction that this council's gonna go in the next few minutes. If under scenario 3, this council approves that transfer, we would be fully funded.
And I guess, how much is, here's my question, I mean, Sean just got up and,
Exactly.
I mean, to me, I mean,
And that's why this is ripe for a compromise.
and how much is money is in the black bear TIF?
You can't use the black bear TIF excess to close the gap because you don't have the authority. Because really, the money's being raised for the black bear TIF. You can only spend it for the black bear TIF. You can move it into the general fund, but you don't have the authority to move it out of the general fund.
No, hold on. There's another.
We can't? All right, so,
Unless you go to town meeting. You know, Roseanne Quacks made a really good presentation the last time she was here, and she spoke about one of the RSAs you can't use to pull money out of unreserved fund balance without town meeting authority. And I agree with her on that. And in this particular case, if you were to move the Black Bear TIF money to the general fund, your authority stops there. Unless, of course, town meeting gave you the authority to transfer it out.
Is that it, Councilor?
I don't know, I just, For right now, yeah.
Councilor Levy.
I don't agree with you.
Okay.
I don't think you're accurate. The money that, I have two issues with Black Bear right now. The boundary was changed somewhere back in, when they bought the Exeter Street and when they bought the Wilson. So the calculations that have been done with respect to the 123,000 that changed from 340,000, at the March 7th meeting, Matt stated that there was 340,000, and then a couple of 3 weeks later, it changed to 120. I think it's very difficult to do the analysis as to how much money was potentially improperly captured by Black Bear when the boundaries were changed and you're including the entire boundary of the area, because
Well, I
But-
have to stop
but-
you there for a second. I'm not including, all right? You have to understand that the Black Bear analysis is really a compilation of multiple people. So when you say it's me alone, that wouldn't be.
No, I said I didn't agree with you. Let me clarify. What I said, I didn't agree with not being able to use the money if it was transferred.
Well, how would you suggest that it be moved?
Okay.
How could you reprogram Black Bear revenues and be used outside of the district? Especially when you have town meeting authority to raise that money and to be used within that district.
If it states by statute that the money that is captured goes to the general fund, if there is no operational plan, et cetera,
Mhm.
which, I don't think we have to go through ad nauseum. I think we know we don't have a plan.
I agree that you can transfer it to the
So
general
once
fund.
it's transferred to the general fund, it is my understanding, and I've obviously looked into it, that money can be used, no different from my perspective than the downtown TIF money that's theoretically the $470,000 that's going to be transferred to the general fund
Yep.
can be
I agree that
used.
you can transfer it
Yeah, and
to
it-
the general fund.
and then you can, the general fund paid for the water fund 20. Means that where did the water, who paid that bill, Matt?
The bill was paid out of a capital project account, separate and distinct from the general fund.
When did you discern that?
The system has about 40 different funds in it. I forget the exact number of the funds, okay? But you have to look at the system like it's multiple businesses. So each fund has its own separate balance sheet and income statement, separate from each other fund. And when I do my presentation with my audit software and run some of your scenarios through, you can see the distinction and what the impact is between each of the funds. So if you're saying that the $535,000 was paid for by the general fund, that's an incorrect statement.
Well, that's what we asked. We asked you that at the budget committee that night. And there were two options, as I recall, and you can go back and watch the tape, because I did. You stated that it was either paid for by the general fund, or that it was a loan from the TIF, which,
If
those are the two statements that you made,
It
Matt.
would be a loan from either the general fund or the TIF. Okay? We're going into that realm of transfer or loan. You have to be very, very distinct that it's a loan, okay?
I'm using your words. I'm
I
not,
understand,
those aren't my words.
but I just want to clarify with you the distinction between loan and transfer. Now, if there is no bank account associated with that fund that paid out the money for the Main Street project, it has to borrow the money from another fund, okay? Such as the downtown TIF or the general fund, okay? Now, when it's a loan, you can't use the general fund money to transfer back to the Main Street project because you just don't have that authority. That authority is reserved to town meeting.
Okay. In the spirit of not going in circles, because I can't do this with Matt, it's too painful for me personally to do this. My personal thought is based on where we are right now, I would recommend, I'm not comfortable with a $123,000 number right now. I don't think we really have enough information based on how the TIF changed over the years to really have a handle on that number.
The downtown TIF?
No, the Black Bear TIF. That's what you're saying that was improperly captured, Matt, correct?
Yeah, but I'm specifically presenting right now the 3 scenarios for the downtown TIF.
Yes, but I think what Councilor Levy is referring to is places we can get more
Oh, okay.
revenue to fund it. Go ahead, Councilor Levy.
So, in the spirit of just closing my point, I'm unsure of the 123. I don't think anybody purposefully misled us, but it went from 340 to 120. I think the boundaries have changed. It's a tough number to get a handle on, but let's say, for sake of argument, that's the number. That leaves 123,000 based on Matt's numbers. It's in Black Bear that was improperly captured, correct? That's what you.
I wouldn't say the numbers of the Black Bear spreadsheet were my numbers. The 123,000, it really is it's the original minus the assessed value times the tax rate. I just applied the tax rate to the bottom. The spreadsheet for the 338,000, that really represents some information that I had that wasn't perfect at that moment. It was actually updated by another individual. Okay, you're
Because
welcome.
he's not an assessor.
You're welcome to come and sit down with the records and vet out that spreadsheet.
But that said, your latest number was 123. Someone's number, that's the number that we've been given.
Latest
Can we all
calculation is
agree on that?
123, 525,
Thank you.
68 cents.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So how about just throwing an option out there, just for the sake of it? There's 123,000 in there. There's $470,000 in the downtown TIF, correct? So, right, roughly? I'm using round numbers. Are we pretty close?
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
safe.
Thank you. I would take 535,000 out of that, roughly 600,000.
Out of which one? 535 out of.
Boy, I'm glad I'm out of college. You take the 470,000.
Okay, 470.
You add the 123 that should have presumably gone to the general fund from Black Bear that was improperly collected, captured.
To fund the 535.
That's where I'm going to go, yes.
All right.
Is that okay?
Well, let's listen to the rest
Okay.
of your argument.
So there's 600,000 minus 535. With me so far? That leaves about $60-odd thousand, right?
The numbers sound okay.
Good. Now you have the 55,000 for the bridge to put away in an escrow account or however you have to set that money aside. Okay? You've paid off the water fund with 535, which basically stays in the general fund for anybody listening out there that doesn't understand all this stuff because it gets rather confusing. But the 535,000 that we're paying back to the water fund is essentially going to stay in the general fund.
No, that's not correct.
Where's it
That's
going to
not
go?
correct.
Where's it going to go?
The 535,000 is not in the general fund. We're not going.
Where's it gonna
through-
go?
It right now the funding is in the water, or originally it was in the water fund. Right now there is no funding for it.
Where's
So
it,
I have to-
after we pay it, Matt, where does it go?
It's going to go into a capital project fund called Main Street Reconstruction, okay? Which is separate and distinct from the general fund, okay? No money can pass through the general fund.
And then what happens to that money when it's in that fund?
It essentially closes out a deficit.
Thank you.
Right
And where
now,
does it
the-
end up? When you go all the way down,
It should zero out that capital project fund.
Okay.
Right now, that fund is sitting in a
and
deficit.
and all I'm asking, please just give me an answer. Where does the
trying to give you an
$535,000 end up?
It should.
Where will
by
it end up?
moving the money from the downtown TIF or from the water fund will end up in the capital project fund.
The capital project fund.
The
But
capital
it's currently
project
sitting in
fund,
deficit of 500, we have
You
a
know,
hole of 535,000.
And once we pay that, where does that bill has been paid, correct? Someone got paid for that
right.
work.
So the
okay.
money is.
So is that going to end up in some CIP account, or is it going to end up in the general fund, or is it going to end up, where's it going to end
It's
up?
not going to go through the general fund.
So just tell me,
It's gonna-
where's it going to end
It's
up?
going to be moved from either a water fund or a TIF fund to the Main Street Capital Project Fund.
Yeah,
Okay? And at no moment can it pass through the general fund.
no, and that's fine. Then you close the downtown,
Then you
project.
close the downtown capital, well, the Main Street project can
Yeah.
get closed.
then you close it, and then,
Okay?
yeah.
Then you can close the downtown TIF because
Yeah.
you don't need to raise the money
Great.
for any more projects.
Where's that money then go? Where did it end up?
The
535.
The 535 zeroes out the deficit in the Main Street Reconstruction Capital Project.
And does someone just say, okay, now it's in the capital project and it's been paid off, and they put a little lighter fluid on it and set it on fire and it disappears, or does it end up somewhere?
What do you mean end up somewhere?
Where does it go?
Where does what go?
535. After we pay that off, where
Okay,
does it
the
end up?
535,000 has to be raised either out of the downtown TIF or out of the water surplus through a capital reserve fund and gets transferred into a Main Street Reconstruction Capital Project Fund.
Yeah,
Okay? It's just that simple.
and then you close the Main Street project,
Capital project.
right?
Yep.
Now it's all gone, bye-bye, right?
Yep.
Okay. Where does that money that we just found and moved around, where does it end up? It's just,
Where does the balance at the end of the closeout go to at that point? The
Of the
council has
TIF?
Yes,
Okay, that's different than the question he's asking.
I understand that. And
Okay.
I'm just trying to
The
clarify that for him.
any surplus that's in the downtown TIF gets transferred to the general fund only upon your authority.
this
Calm
is,
down, Gary.
this is so, I'm telling
This is
you,
accounting.
this is so obfuscating that it is beyond the realm. So at the end of the day, it is in the general fund. Does everybody understand that?
No, it's
not
not
in the
the
general
general
Then
fund.
where does it go? He
The
just-
downtown TIF, the surplus in the downtown TIF goes to the general fund.
Okay. And
Okay.
then, so the general fund will have 535, it won't
That's
have
not a
any money.
surplus in the
It'll
downtown.
have- We'll have no money in
180
it.
something
No.
thousand, because you have to take out it's going to have less than that.
Well, what will it have?
Probably around 480,000, because you have to remove the $55,000 and reserve that for the town's portion of the Sky Bridge.
I know, Councilor Bentley, you have a comment, but I'm trying to clear this up. I think that the issue, the misunderstanding that's going on right now is that we have an account with a deficit
Yes.
of $535,000.
You have a fund with a deficit.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, a fund with a deficit that is looking for a revenue source.
Yeah.
It needs a revenue source against it. But Councilor Levy, and I think there's other people that are having
Yep,
trouble wrapping their mind around this, is once you allocate a revenue source against that,
yes.
they're thinking this is really $535,000 against this project, that there will be a pile of $535,000 somewhere, I
Yeah.
think is the misconception.
We're not moving cash.
Yeah, there we go.
We're moving, in your terms, we'd be moving retained earnings from one corporation to another, but not moving the cash.
But in the end, less the 55,000 that Ed is talking about, which, I was going about a different way to
Yes, I
get to
understand- I
that.
understand how you go.
Okay? There will be theoretically 480,000 if you want to do it your way, or 535 if I did it my way, and then I would take the other 55 with the balance to the 600 from the 535. I mean, it depends on how you want to do it.
Might be
But at the end of the day, that money will be part of our,
general fund.
and it will move ultimately, with the grace of God, to the fund balance at the end of the whole
Correct.
shebang. And so, just in closing up, because it's very frustrating getting a straight answer, and I can appreciate accountants, okay, I deal with accountants all the time. There is a point at which, plain speaking, needs to come to the surface, and you need to get to a point of because I'm laying this out relatively logically. It may not have all the accounting jargon, but Ed understands where the money is ultimately going to end up. And if Ed understands and the rest of us are thinking, okay, the money doesn't just disappear, it's not just gone. You know, at the end of the day, if you know, I would take all the money because I think we have an obligation to take the money out of there, at least for now, until we figure out what the heck's going on with a TIF. But if you want to take, you said you couldn't take the Black Bear money and pay for.
Before we go on to a different subject, we got other people
Okay,
that
I'm
have
sorry.
lights
Go ahead,
here.
please.
All right, go ahead, Councilman Nally.
This was 25 minutes ago, so
Yeah.
we can figure that out.
You have anything else?
No?
Mr. Wilson?
I guess I just want to make 2 points. And the first thing, I want the, the community to understand that a few years ago, when we negotiated the franchise agreement, one of the things that we received from Comcast was $70,000 to put towards the iNet upgrade that we were going to do. When we received the money, the only thing we could do with it, because we wanted to transfer it to the capital reserve account, was put it into the fund balance and have town meeting voted out into the capital reserve account. That was the only procedure we had. We had to drop it into the fund balance or the surplus, and then from there, town meeting could do that. And I think what Matt's trying to say is, it doesn't matter what we do with any accounts that we move into the general fund, the only body that is ever going to have the ability to move that money in the future at any point in time is town meeting by a vote. And they can say no, or they can say yes. And that's the only way to deal with it. The other thing is, in order to do what the discussion that we just had, is that we literally, the council, not we, the council needs to appropriate $535,000 from the water general fund into a capital reserve, then into the downtown enhancement project to close out the project. So, we can't take the money from the TIF, and Mr. Blastos, who was here earlier, even said it. All you can do is move the money into the general fund, which means you don't have access to it. That's what you have to understand. So your scenario will only work in one direction, that's putting it into into the lockbox until town meeting can deal with it. The only thing that completes the scenario that we want to accomplish is to close it out and put it into fund balances, to water fund to a capital reserve to the enhancement project, close it out. 2 things happen. The balance goes into the general fund, and the amount of captured assessed value drops into the total assessed value of the community, which means that 18-cent reduction in the tax rate for the residents of this community. That's what it comes down to
Councilor Bentley?
Which is what we tried to do
previously.
weeks back, correct?
Yes.
Downstairs.
Yes.
Picture the triangle, move it here, move it
Yes.
here. It's all legal. I asked you point blank. You've checked with everyone, this is legal,
Yes.
and that could have done it then.
Yep.
Okay.
What's in it?
And actually, Mr. Levy was right, where you can fund some of Sean's water projects with that same funding scenario.
Correct.
So, we could use, this is a question, could we use, I should say, it's an interrogative, the money that's in the downtown TIF right now towards, not to, because it's not enough, towards the water project? The downtown water project?
Yes.
Which would leave us in deficit of like, whatever, $100,000.
100 and a quarter.
Yeah. So,
Wait, hold on. It's 470, isn't it, in the downtown TIF?
but
I'm sorry.
it's
It-
like
well,
480 in the downtown TIF, but it's minus the 55 that we have to encumber for the Sky Bridge. So,
And you know,
what is the downside of using that money, less than 55K for the Sky Bridge?
You would have less money in the general fund towards your meeting the 16%. So it's going to be about, I want to say, you're going to be about 600,000 in the general fund for unreserved fund balance. So if you were able to have a net income for the general fund of about 100,000, it would take you about 4 years to get up to that minimum balance. However, on the flip side of that, you'll have more available water surplus balance in which you can fund some of Sean's projects.
Right. So, because to me, the conversation Sean just had weighs on this conversation.
Absolutely. That's why this is ripe for
Right.
compromise.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Levy.
So if you somehow used the TIF money and found the balance of it to pay off the the excess captured money that we were told at $120,000, can that be used, Matt, to pay off the 535?
It could only through a town meeting vote.
See, and I apologize, but I've just been given completely different information, so I don't want to go back and forth. But and I guess I would say this at this point: the council can go get some opinion. I've obviously gotten some opinions. If that's what it really comes down to do our fiduciary responsibility and do what's right for this town, at least in my personal opinion. We all have our own opinions of what's the right thing to do. Then I would say have a town meeting. If that's what it's going to come down to, because you're talking about depleting the water fund under the scenario that we've been, that's been put on the table for the last month, that would seriously dampen what's in the water fund, which could be used for future testing and other things that are pretty darn critical for this town right now. That water fund balance 20 has been paid for one way or another. It may not have been reconciled, but it is. I don't think that developer, whomever did the work, is still waiting for his money. So
Let's not mix cash and revenue
so
sources
my,
on the
my,
county.
my bottom line point is, if I can assure you tomorrow, I'm going to be making some phone calls to find out if this is absolutely imperative that we have a town meeting. But in the event that we have to have this, to Matt's point, I would say then you move the money that has been collected, and meaning in the Black Bear TIF as well as the downtown TIF, and you by the numbers I've calculated, we'd have somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 million in the fund balance this coming year. And I'm basing that on 400 in the Black Bear TIF, the closest numbers we've been given, roughly 470 in the downtown TIF, the $390,000 that Matt thinks we're going to have for a surplus this year. And if you aggregate those numbers and then you put the money away for the Sky Bridge and whatnot, you'd have somewhere between 1.2 and 1.1 and 1.2 million.
We are never going to come to any sort of resolution on this as long as we are not operating from the same set of numbers.
Okay.
Right now, as long as we all we have 7 different sets of assumptions
What did
around.
I say wrong?
Well, no, nothing. Just you, because you're saying. No, I'm not saying what your numbers are wrong. What I'm saying is that you're operating off numbers that aren't necessarily the same numbers that Matt's operating off of.
Those are the numbers he gave us. 470 in the downtown TIF, 400 roughly in the Black Bear TIF, and he said there's going to be about $395,000 in a surplus this year. Isn't that what you told us?
You just spewed out a
Yeah.
lot of numbers really fast. I can't absorb it that quickly.
You said there was going
But
to be...
there, the logic of what you're saying sounds reasonable without trying to add up the numbers.
Thank you.
Okay. The only thing that I have to kind of give an exception for is I can only make transfers based upon the authority of this board and the authority of town meeting.
Okay.
Is there any part of this that restricts us in the amount that we're allowed to expend based on what the budget that was approved by the taxpayers last time they voted or 2 times ago that we're still operating on right now?
I'm sure there is. I haven't calculated that number.
But we're
I
capped
just-
at that. We can't spend a cent more than
I
that.
have only stuck with the numbers that were approved by the 2008 council. So if there's a surplus above that, it's possible. I just haven't calculated it.
Okay.
Just one last...
Yeah, well, I guess, as far as the town meeting goes, I'm fine having some form of town meeting. I personally will always defer to the residents. They're the legislative body of authority in this town, and we should not be a dictatorship of 7 up here. And we should allow, the reason that we are so restricted in what we can spend, it's a good thing that we're restricted. Because, everyone says we have too much power and we should go back to, not everyone, a lot of people, we should go back to selectmen because the council has too much power. Well, I think that this entire escapade, for lack of a better term, is a great example of how we have very little authority to do very much outside of what the town actually allows us to do, and I think that's a good thing.
Just
Councilor.
two quick things. I always understood the percentage to be between 12 and 16% for whatever it's worth. I never heard 16 as a pat number, but that aside, just for clarification's sake, why can we use money from the downtown TIF and not money from, for example, we can use the 470 to pay off fund balance number 20, right? You said that.
The 470 is
Yeah.
from which fund?
The $470,000 that's in the downtown TIF.
Okay.
You said that could be used, Phil just asked you if that could be used to pay off the $535,000 in the water fund. You said yes.
Yes.
Okay. And the, for lack of a better word, improperly captured money that went to Black Bear
You got it.
inappropriately, which should have gone to the general fund. You're saying that money can be used to pay toward that bill as well, correct?
No.
Or not? You can't use that 123 at all?
You can only move it within your authority to the general fund. Then you have to go and ask for town meeting to pull it out of the general fund. You have to let it fall into fund balance, go to town meeting, and appropriate the difference. So here's another scenario based upon what I'm gleaning from what you're saying. If you paid off the full amount out of the downtown TIF, and you transferred the resolution tonight from the Black Bear to the general fund for the, I forgot the number, it's like 123.
123. And I
Then-
can't verify the number,
then
but just.
The difference, I would have to make a reservation of fund balance, so it would reduce fund balance only momentarily, and then wait for the next town meeting cycle to fund the rest, using the Black Bear overcaptured tax revenue.
It's because, your question is, it's because the downtown TIF money can go to downtown projects without, it's already been,
I was waiting for him to say that. I was waiting to see if he was going to say that.
well, he obviously knows.
It's just that the scenario that we're in right now has the worst impact on the financial statements, okay? Any kind of scenario that can be compromised on has a better impact on the financial statements. Also, after listening to Sean's conversation, we have to consider that as well.
Okay, so just one last comment, Phil.
Hold on one second, Counselor. Does any other counselor have a comment earlier?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead, Counselor.
So basically, we have two big problems for us. We have Sean's problem, and we have the problem with the downtown TIF closing that out.
Yeah,
You got
And
more
we
than
have to
that.
come to a compromise, figure it out.
between the counselors.
Right, to
Yeah.
council, I'm just so concerned that Sean's gonna wake up, and there's gonna be another problem. So,
What do you mean?
well, basically, look what we need right now, Macintosh well,
Yep.
storage.
Yep.
So we can pick, what do we say? We could take that, how are we gonna move that money? We
You-
could take that from the water fund,
You can take that from
Go
the
to
water
CIP,
surplus fund.
surplus fund,
And
right.
put it in a capital reserve fund.
Right.
And then and then draw it from the capital reserve fund to pay for that project.
Right.
That's within your authority.
Right.
Well, Counselor, let me go.
No, go ahead.
So I think that the missing piece of this conversation is Sean, who's making trouble at the back of the classroom. I guess we need to know, based on and I know you probably don't have the numbers right in front of you, but based on what DES is coming down on us about, we need to know what the plan is going to look like for expending funds, to know how much we actually can appropriately take out of the water fund to be this compromise situation, because otherwise we're operating on assumptions and not facts.
I think the bottom line that when I drew out my plans, and I have a couple of the plans here that I actually drew out because I did it with the money that we're getting from SRF, and now I've done it without the money from SRF. The best way for us to get this accomplished is not to pay cash for these items. It's to bond them. Because by bonding the items, as you pay down your debt, you're able to take on other items. When you use your cash, you can only go so far. And these items are too big to try and pay cash for.
The well and the storage.
Yeah, it just is. So, and keep in mind too, if you do, I feel the most important one is the well out of all of them. Because if you have more water source, you're able to keep your tank full. So that's
not distracting at all.
But so that's important. You know, the more supply you have, the more you can keep the tank full, so you're able to handle fires and other demands. So
how much do we need to keep in the capital reserve right now to make these, or move over even? How much do we have to have in that capital reserve to make these projects work?
How much do we have in the capital?
Like 300
That's the
something
question.
thousand.
He's got 300 and he's got
$361,000 in the CIP currently right now.
and another 3 coming this year, presumably, somewhere in there.
360 coming in, which would make $720,000 in the CIP.
And then about 960 in his other one.
960 in the other one.
So
I mean, I guess if
You're listening up.
I was to look at it right now, if I would like to see $400,000 to $500,000 remain in the fund balance of the water department.
$500,000, even with what we just got from DES.
I would like to keep $400,000 to $500,000 in that account. Yes.
So-
That's for cash flow. That's for transferring money. That's for if something else goes.
This is
you
the
know,
fund balance, I'm sorry. What
That's
do you
the
want in
fund
the
balance.
CIP,
The CIP
given
is,
what DES told us?
I want to continually fund the CIP at a level fund to try and keep rates right. But what I'm thinking could happen is you could take a little bit of money from the water fund balance, not a lot. Because I'm looking at right now, the things that I'd want to pay cash for on that well is I would want to do the pilot. I would like to run the electrical.
The pilot's 150?
Pilot's 150. I believe the electrical is around 250. So what could happen is you
400.
could take some money out of the water fund balance. You could take the 250 out of the water fund balance and pay for the electrical, do the pilot out of the CIP portion, and have a good portion of that ready to roll. Because the electrical you got to do anyway. And the reason I say do the electrical, you're probably not going to get it done in time for the pilot. You're going to probably have to do the pilot. But the electrical, as like the main street happened, the electrical costs escalate fast. They go up year after year after year. So to save money, doing the electrical is a very important piece.
But my recollection is that in order for us to do the pilot, we had always anticipated bringing in a generator.
Correct.
To run it for that period of time.
Correct.
So if we, that scenario, just
Yeah.
separately with the pilot and a generator.
$150,000 approximately.
$150,000 to do that, and then we can wait and then move forward. The community can vote in March, have better
Correct.
numbers as to how we're going to proceed.
Correct.
So realistically, you have enough money in CIP
Correct.
to do the pilot.
Correct. Correct.
That would be the first step. in
That would
order
be,
to
that's the first step.
gauge what we have to do.
The first step is to run the pilot, and the pilot may cost a little bit more because we want to supercharge it to get it done.
Right.
So we're ready for a March vote.
Yep.
That's the big thing.
So conceivably under scenario 3, where $267,000 comes out of the water fund balance,
Yeah.
would we still be able to move forward with the projects that are going to be necessary to keep DES from finding us?
Don't know.
'Cause that is-
Remember, are you talking about taking the money from the fund balance? That's a different question, because he'll have money in CIP to do the things that we need to do, so we can go to a bond vote for the community. This is taking money from the fund balance in order to mix it with the downtown TIF in order to close it out, I'm assuming.
No.
No?
Sorry. He's asking whether you can use some of the fund balance to fund like the
So,
Macintosh well.
Option 3. No, what I'm asking is option 3, which is
Yeah, option
the
3.
splitting, which is
Yeah,
taking
splitting,
some money from fund
yeah.
balance,
Right.
some from other sources.
What-
If we took 260 out of the fund balance, which would bring you down to 700 right now,
Yeah, it would bring me down to around, what, 680?
yeah, would you
680.
still be, like, not just able to operate, but operate under, given the new conditions that we understand we're gonna have to spend money
Yes.
to satisfy DES to show that we're moving forward on Macintosh?
Right now, I would say yes, right
It's
now.
very equivocating answer. What's-
Because you don't know what's gonna
Well,
happen.
I mean, I haven't sat down and met with them. You know, I haven't had that discussion of what we need to get done. So I don't know what the end game is. You understand what I'm saying? So you're asking me to commit without knowing what the plan is. So I feel like I could happen because if I have $670,000 in there at July 1st, we'd be able to immediately transfer the funds because the funds are there
Yeah.
and get it into the CIP account, which would give me $720,000, which would allow us to move forward with a lot of the projects. Yes.
Okay. Counselor Levy.
I've zoned out too. I'm with John right now. I don't even remember anymore.
We need you to, hey, come on, Counselor, stay with me. I know there's a lot of math, but we gotta do.
The only thing I would say now is, I think we really, no deference or no disrespect to Matt, I think we have to absolutely find out, at least for, what I'd like to know is, if we absolutely have to have a town meeting, number one, just so we know that. Number two, whatever is, I'd like to verify the 120 that's supposedly over-captured. I'd like to figure out how the council wants to deal with the balance of the money that's in there that we've discussed with respect to not having a plan, and that it goes back to the tax list. And I would.
Yeah,
I'm
I understand.
bringing it up.
I understand,
So-
but that is gonna take so long, and we have till June 30th to fix this problem?
Well, it doesn't take as long as you think if you want to deal with it. So that's where I'm at, so.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's money that is, taxpayer money. It is legitimately, it's being held, in my estimation, improperly, doing nothing. And it could certainly help our fund balance at the end of the year, which would ultimately help potentially the tax rate, and it could potentially help running the town and financing the town. So that's my perspective on it.
Appreciate your perspective.
Leave it at
Counselor
that.
Lynch.
Sean, under scenario 3, you end up with 665 as roughly a balance. You can utilize those funds for engineering fees, things of that nature, correct? No? If we wanted to do some site work, for example,
Are you talking the water fund now?
Yeah.
You take it out, if you guys do a 7-0 vote and move it into a capital
Right.
improvement.
okay, I guess my concern is everyone's up here talking about how, we can start fixing this water problem, we can start doing testing at Macintosh and everything. And I'm going to disagree with the council and everybody else on that, because no means no. And there was a vote taken on Macintosh while moving it forward, and the vote failed. So until there's another vote for that purpose, I don't see us being able to utilize either one of the two projects that we put to the voters over the last 2 years.
The answer to that would be no, because in this fiscal year, which we are in, that's when the vote was taken for defeating the Macintosh well. On July 1st, that's the new fiscal year, that the town meeting only binds itself for that year. Each town meeting is a separate sort of page or chapter for the community. So therefore, after July 1st, if the council so chooses, it can appropriate money from capital reserve to start the pilot project and move forward with it to get the answers that it wants to get. The no only is for the current year that we're in. Because if you recall, we tried to do something after the May meeting. Several folks came up and said, no means no. We all agreed that, yes, that's, we agreed with that. But in July 1, it's a new year, it's a new fiscal cycle. Town council could move forward with the pilot study.
I have to respectfully disagree with you on that.
okay.
And I'm only saying it based on, what I've learned through the process over the years, through people like Mr. Fillion and everything. I'm concerned that, the voters sent a message saying no, and, okay, so we'll let 12 months elapse, and then we'll just go and do it anyway. And that's, to me, is not the proper way to go about doing business. Now, I understand totally what you're saying, and we've got a whole different playing field right now. We do. We have things that need to be addressed. But I would feel very uncomfortable supporting a situation like that without voter approval, for those reasons. And I guess I'll leave it at that. And Ed, no disrespect to you, I just disagree. Sorry.
I'll talk to DRA about it tomorrow.
We have, and I'll let Councilor Levy go, but we have at least two issues right now that we have disagreements as to the law right now. One is the town meeting issue, that with ability to expend with or without town meeting authority.
Yeah, and just so you're clear, so you know, and also that we can use money that is captured from either TIF toward paying that bill off. So that's
So-
the other question.
You got that one?
The Gary's one
Yes.
relative to, I'll ask that question.
We need to get that
I'll ask
and
it
the
too.
question that Councilor LaBranch has.
Yes.
I know, but here's what, I understand that people are going to their own lawyers and what it comes down to, and I'm just gonna draw the line here. When the town attorney, whether you like him or not, gives us opinion, we gotta go with it. And we can sit here and say, my lawyer disagrees all we want, and we'll turn into the Hatfields and McCoys, and we'll never get anywhere as a town, and then we're all kinda in it. And we're in it together, and it's not gonna go well. So I appreciate that you have legal counsel giving you an opinion, and we can hash it out up here, but at the end of the day, we can only have one legal opinion for the council and for the town.
One other point with respect to Councilor Branch's issue, and I absolutely respect the will of the voters. That Warren article, and I don't recall it perfectly, but I think it was for 3.7 million or something like that. It had to do with I can't remember the exact amount, but it had to do with a plant that was going to treat the water. It had to do with the testing, et cetera. So, I think in the economic times that vote was taken and the people were, it was a lot of money, and everything sort of failed then. What we're talking about, I think, is just looking at the testing aspect of the well. Am I missing something? And potentially, if you have to run some wires, if the test comes out right or whatever, to run electrical.
Ideally, if we were able to if we went to DRA and they said, yes, year's up, you could move forward, there is enough money in the account to do the testing so that we could get the information we need to bring to the people to say, what do you want to do? Make a decision and get it to the March vote.
But just in closing my point, the 150 is a lot different than 3.7 million. So
Because the $3.3 million, that's what it came up to be,
3.3.
was the soup to nuts
Yeah.
of getting the well, the electrical in, the roadway, the well developed, the building for the treatment system, piping it in. That was a soup to nuts issue. This is just
And
testing to see.
that's my
where-
point. That's all I'm trying to say, so I think if we were spending just to get my
Yeah.
point out, if we were spending 3.3, I would be 100% in agreement with Mike on that. I would totally think that was inappropriate, even with the year off and whatnot, but
I understand.
you're talking about roughly, if I'm doing my math right, roughly 4.5%, 5% of what that whole Warren article represented, so.
Except the language was written, this is why we need legal opinion. The language was written in the Warren article about the testing. If we hadn't specifically stated the testing in the Warren
No, I
article,
understand. I
then
understand.
it wouldn't have been voted down. So I think we do need to get
But
legal.
the year has
opinion.
passed, I think. so.
I know, but I still think we need to get legal opinion on that. So where the heck do we stand with this right now? So I think that we cannot make a decision about this until we're all operating from the same basis of information around what the law says on these issues, because Councilor Levy has some very strong beliefs on some things that other people just are not agreeing with, so I think we just need to get what the law says and then move forward.
Well, the other people, with all due respect, is Matt Angel. So let's just keep it at that.
No, I would tend to agree with Matt Angel. I do, so. But we will hear what the lawyer has to say.
Yeah, just,
Yes,
Lot to beat
Councilor
a dead.
Wright.
Sean, since you're here, we could do this pilot program, correct? And after doing this pilot program, we could probably find out where there's a good chance maybe we don't need the treatment plan, is that correct?
I would
Or am I
lean,
just-
I'm leaning towards you're gonna either
You need
have
it
to
one way or another?
blend or gonna have to treat. It's
Okay.
not something you can pump right into the system. We've had too many people look at it and tell us that.
All right.
I guess just a couple on that is, it's the issue of a standalone well that should one of the other two wells go down, that well, McIntosh and whatever well remains, is capable of producing sufficient water to meet our daily supply. That's the issue. If we have to blend,
So no mixing.
then, a well goes down, we may not have the ability to produce enough water because of the blending aspect of it. That's the other piece, that's the
Correct.
important piece, and it's the whole directive that we're trying to understand with this
Yeah,
well.
I mean,
That's fine.
I'm trying not to go too far, because I
No.
want the testing to
Right.
speak for itself.
Yeah.
I don't wanna try and,
Thank you. As far as the 123 goes, I think we should vote on it at the same time next meeting.
Yep.
And, okay. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Can I ask one goofy question?
No goofy question.
Councilor Levy, go ahead.
Well, we talked about the licensing way back when we had public opinion on the license for the carts, but you never really,
We need to
never
vote on it.
well, we never discussed it, and I had a question about it, so I.
Can we bring that up under old new business? Since we already have that.
Sure, I just want to remind you.
So, next agenda item is achieve council priorities.
I don't,
What's that, Councilor Bentley? Are you grumbling over that?
I don't see that happening tonight.
So I guess my question is, because I'm not gonna let this one go. I mean, we don't have to talk about it tonight, but I'm not gonna let this one go.
What do
The achieve council priorities.
Oh.
If we don't come up with strategies, we keep pushing this off, and it's fine. I know this is only second time it's been on the agenda, and we don't come up with cohesive and coherent strategies towards achieving these, we're gonna find ourselves in meetings like we had tonight, again and again. And I don't think this is fun for anybody. And I think that, yeah, Councilor Bentley.
Well, the converse, Mr. Chair, I mean, part of the reason I thought it was great when you brought up at our first meeting, you had stated something to the effect of, we don't get to these because we gotta get on these side tracks.
Right.
So even if we had these, it's the side tracks that don't, it's the cart ahead of the horse here. We don't get things done because of the side tracks, not because we don't have our vision and goals. We have them right here.
Yes, but I think we have vision and priorities here, but if we don't have strategies that we are willing to act upon and that will drive the agendas for our meetings, then we have a destination with no map to get there. That's my concern. Councilor Levy, is this light for this or is this the last conversation?
Oh, no, I'm,
See what I'm saying? I am going to propose that we will move this to the next agenda, just based on the robustness of the last conversation and the mental capacity everyone's expended. And Councilor LaBranch, before I finish.
In the past, the council has drawn up goals. We did it last year. We basically achieved one, which was very time-consuming because it changed the whole way that we ran our time schedule. You need to set the goals, you need to prioritize them, in my opinion. But one of the things, and maybe Mr. Winowski can add to this, is what I had done a couple of years ago is we actually came up with a chart that was included with every meeting, and town administrator would give updates on each item that was on that chart. It was at one time, we probably had 15 different items on there. So if nothing else, no, we may not be accomplishing these goals, but we're striving towards continuing to get the goals off the plate. And you're always going to have Sean coming up, or someone like him, with a problem that's bigger than the one that's at the top of our list. So, you know, when you meet twice a month, for the most part, and you try to function for 3 hours at you know, full function, and then you start to lose it after the 3 hours are up in some cases, it's hard to stay focused on just one or two items. Town's got too many issues to have one or two that's going to, you know, be focused on. And I agree with having a strategy to get through them, but I think you need to identify them in the order that they are. And if something is number one today, and Sean or Rick or Chief Sear come in tomorrow, or Doug Poulin comes in at the next meeting and says, we got this, then we need to decide if that becomes, you know, our next focus. And I'm just saying that as someone that's been sitting here for a few years where we've had goals, we've achieved some, and some just don't get off the ground.
I feel like priority one gets to that. That, like, if nothing against the water department, nothing against it whatsoever, but if there was some system whereby the council had been tracking notifications we had gotten of potentially our water system not having capacity, and had like EPA telling us that, which I don't think anyone up here had any like foreknowledge of, then we would not run into the situations. Failure to plan is planning to fail, right? That we wouldn't run into all these, oh man, here comes this one now. Oh, here comes this one now. Same with finances. I think that if we were receiving a standardized finance brief once a month that had, you know, just like a quad chart or something that was just easily digestible information that just allowed us to have, it would have the background as well, then we could see potentially a problem coming on the horizon as opposed to being surprised by it. I mean, all priority one is about is preventing these surprises so we can focus on the larger issues, so that our energies up here are driven to putting our community on the path to long-term economic health. Because right now, I think most of our meetings are all about the basics. It's all about, like, you're right, operating a town, and there will be things that happen. A flood will occur, and then the world will end, and everything changes. But I think that if we don't have a standardized system of getting one down, getting the basics right, and just receiving that information from administration in a way that's digestible and allows us to project forward, then once we get that right, we can spend a ton of time focusing on, all right, how do we get ourselves on long-term economic health, and things like the facilities, which is something like you said, like sort of like an additional project that maybe we can get done in a year. So, Councilor Levy.
Not to digress, but, you know, we had option 1, 2, and 3 here. It was handed out tonight. It wasn't given to us prior to the meeting. And from my standpoint, this should be Agenda 1 item. You know, what we're dealing with now, this is like what we have to get done, figured out, and make a decision. And, you know, with all due respect to the push carts and all the other things we talk about, this is like, from my standpoint, I can tell you one thing, if this was my business, this would be first and foremost to get addressed. And it's very frustrating for me to not be able to get information like this handed out tonight. There's not even an option to use any other kind of funds or whatever, and it, you know, that's how it gets this way. So when when you get in this quagmire of questions and not getting answers, and I'm not even getting into the fact that we've been given how many sets of different numbers in the last 6 weeks. And so you're going to say, well, geez, you know, that's Matt's, it's we have bad computers, and we have this and we have that. You know, that works maybe once or twice. It's going on, you know, 6, 7 weeks where we're just given different numbers every other meeting, and it's, you know, I guess that's okay,
No,
but
I'm
I'll
not
tell you,
saying
I
that's-
wouldn't put up with it.
Gary, I'm not saying that's okay. What I'm saying is that he was brought in specifically because we knew our books were a mess. And we
Okay.
wanted someone to fix it. So if it takes time to do it, I don't want to wait for the 6 months it takes for him to do it, to then all of a sudden here's all the bad information. I would rather, as he's discovering it, he's letting us know with the context of, we're not at the end of straightening the books up yet. And so
I understand, Phil, but, you know, 1 week it's 3, 1 week it's 1, it's all over the place. It's just very, very frustrating. That's all I can
it
say.
is, I think it is frustrating for everyone. I bet no one is more frustrated than Matt, who's actually digging through the books.
Exactly.
Okay.
And every day he goes to work, seeing a new conundrum that he's gonna have to bring before us. Because of the way things happened years and years ago. Counselor Wright, I know you.
Okay. Just on the priorities, do the basic. I would have really appreciated it. I'm not sure what time Matt got done with it, but just to email it off, even at noon, because when you're looking at this, and Matt's explaining it, there's so much to go through. And it's so much helpful if we had this ahead of time. I know he probably worked late on it. I don't know what time he had it done, but it just, I don't care if it was at noon time today.
I agree.
Or at 4 o'clock or something, just to get heads up to quickly look at it. And then really, you can have some pretty intelligent questions to ask instead of just taking so long, just saying, what is this? What's going on?
I'm gonna propose that, well, let's just move this to next meeting. I think we're not gonna have a very productive conversation about this. Unless any other counselor want to talk about priorities right now? I want mental capacity on this. Counselor LaBranch.
I'm just looking at, number one priority, do the basics right. I think that's what we're trying to do. To me, there's 4 answers to every question. The right and the wrong answer, and the one that you want to hear and the one that you don't want to hear. And, we're finding that out, that, we've got people trying to do the best job they can with the information that they've got, with the materials that they have, with the history that they have. And, I'm not saying we accept wrong answers, but we need to certainly understand that they're not coming up here to tell us things they know are wrong. Things that, they're not purposely giving us bad information. And the information they're giving us, like I said, is not always what maybe I want to hear or you want to hear, but that's what it is. And we need to, I think priority 1 with do the basics right, I think that's what we're trying to do. So that's one that's right there. Communications with the community is part of that. Water's part of priority 1. School in town, we're working on that. I think we can focus on doing the basics right. And number 2 and number 3, we can maybe lay off a little bit. That's just my opinion. And once again, we're one counselor short this evening, and he may have totally different ideas or maybe the perfect idea. So, I may agree and say, let's carry this over, but I think we need to have a healthy conversation about it and see where we want to go, because, no, I don't want to come here and spend 2 hours hashing out Black Bear every meeting. I don't want to do that. I'm tired of doing that. So, let's do the basics right.
I think we should have a conversation about what that looks like for us. What does it look like for us to get the basics right? What activities, what actions, concrete actions should we be taking on a bi-monthly basis to ensure that we're doing that? And we can have that conversation next time. Because I agree that until you get the basics right, until you get operating and managing down, it doesn't matter. You can have all the strategic thinking in the world, but if you're not operating and managing at a level that is effective, at least, if not efficient, then talking about the big things is pie in the sky. Okay, we'll talk about that next meeting. Old new business. Councilor Bentley.
As asked, I called Mr. Chinberg on the Carl Gilbert Memorial Bench. He got back to me almost immediately. So there's 4 areas we talked about for the bench the Gilbert family is going to pay for. The Arbor Park, the Pocket Park, and the two Chinburg ones. One is called the Riverwalk, that's down by the water behind it, and the other is inside of the mill, I guess, the open air.
The overlook is where the Eagles used to be.
So-
The large structure that he,
Behemoth.
So where's the other one, then? It's inside of a,
no, the one that's down by the Riverwalk is right down where the parking is in the boat dock.
So he was very receptive. He said he would do anything he could do to help if the family chooses it's one of those two areas. He said he would take a walk with us and with the Gilberts, and he said, obviously, make sure I'm in compliance. I don't want to get in trouble, but anyway, so I need to call. I just spoke to him the first time early in the week, and then the last time yesterday. So I need to speak with the Gilbert family and tell them the 4 places, and then I guess get final approval, and and maybe Ricky pipes in about, well, if it's going to be here, let's make sure we remember that that's where the plow turns around, or if it's going to be here, make sure. So anyway, I will call Kathy Gilbert Jones tomorrow and tell her the 4 places, and then I guess wait for direction from the rest of you, but just try to get it wrapped up.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Any other old new business?
2 things we have to do.
Yeah, real quick, I have one thing I just wanted to bring up, that I do not want to get involved with administration. I am going to obey the town charter. But a couple members of the public just brought up to me, and I want to bring it up just in front of everyone, that they were just questioning how much time the town planner is spending on the dam removal as opposed to economic development, or chapter 6 of the master plan. So I just wanted to mention it. I mentioned it to you that it had been brought up to me, and I just wanted to mention it in front of all the councilors as well. So, Councilor Levy.
Just on that licensing thing, there was prohibited conduct. There were like 12 items listed that are prohibited. You can't chase a car while it's driving through town and try to sell them a sub sandwich and stuff like that. So I'm looking at this, and I couldn't help but ask, who is going to enforce this litany of things? I think, and not to be a wise guy, but I think the answer is really nobody unless
Code enforcement.
something
Code
happens.
enforcement officer.
Well, I know, but I mean, it would be, okay.
It actually says it in there.
I know, but the code enforcement officer, it's probably not something that they can, during the day to,
Well, the goal isn't that,
they're
the
checking
person
out a
to
house,
see-
yeah.
They're checking out a house, and so they're going through town, and they see that there is, hey, that's not in line with what they're supposed to do, pays the individual a visit. Very same thing as it relates to the cafe tables. There's certain areas they're supposed to be, and we try to do it. And what we've had so far is businesses that have been very responsible about ensuring that the areas are clean, they're in the area that they're
No,
supposed to be.
I don't want you to think I was criticizing.
No, I understand.
I'm looking at all these, and I'm like, who on this God's earth is going to run around and like, I'm just bringing it up because it seemed.
But the issue becomes the following year when they pay their $50 and they want to go back, the council can say, you know something, we had all these violations, so.
All right, I'm
It's
just,
somewhat of
it's
a
a lot of
carrot and
violations.
I
That was my only point.
understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion on that, or was that all?
Well, the council needs to vote to accept them and then sign off on them.
Okay.
Or the chair will. Just needs to. So.
So
need
I
a
will-
final-
We did the public comment, but
We
we
did the
never
public
really
hearing,
did-
so I will entertain a motion on public hearing for licensure of a stand, I'm sorry, for ordinance 2011-2012-2, regulating licensure of stand located public property within downtown.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Administrator, the vote.
Council Wright?
Aye.
Council Levy?
Aye.
Council Branch?
Aye.
Council Carmichael? Council Bentley?
Aye.
Chairman Nazaro?
Aye, motion passes 6-0. Any other old new business?
The next one,
Go ahead.
23.
Oh, that's right. So, given that we had a public hearing on Resolution 2011-2012-23, closeout of New Village project and withdrawal of $14,621 from Sewer Capital Reserve Fund for final payment costs, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none?
Right?
Aye.
Council Levy?
Aye.
Council Branch?
Aye.
Council Carmichael? Council Bentley?
Aye.
Chairman Nazaro?
Aye, motion passes 6-0. Any other older new business? Councilor Branch, I'm sorry. You have the light on.
just wondering if you're going to address the correspondence we received in the last few days, reference to the,
Excellent point. Thank you very much.
and if you are, then I'd like to make a motion to go past 10 o'clock.
I will hear a motion. I will accept the motion. Is there a second? Yeah, we're at 9:59. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We won't go much past, but a resident sent all the counselors a letter stating that he was attempting to use rec department playground and was told by an individual that worked at the rec department, his understanding she worked at the rec department, that they were not allowed to play there because it was a legal liability. So town administrator has looked into it, and it is apparently Head Start was on the playground at the time. And do we know if it's accurate that there's a legal liability if someone plays during Head Start?
Yes.
Okay, and the reason we are required to have, Head Start's a great program, I'm very supportive of Head Start. We're also required to have it because of the federal grant money we received during construction of that playground, or the facilities?
The construction of the facility had to
Right.
be a certain low to moderate income programs, and
Yes.
Head Start fit that.
Right. So, if the council is fine with it, I will reply to the individual. I replied just saying that I would look into it, but if the council is fine with me replying to the individual, just giving him the information that I received stating what we just said. Any issues with that?
No, it's fine.
All right, Councilor Bentley.
Well, he was first.
That's what he, do you have something else to talk about on this?
Well, in reference to this, I have no problem with you addressing it, but I think so that we can avoid this problem further down the road, we should probably ask Mr. Hilton to do something similar to what he does when he runs the summer camp, so that residents know when there are certain restrictions on that area. That would be my recommendation.
We talked about that today, that will probably, when the kids are out there, because they're anywhere, they're out there from 30 to 45 minutes once a day, hang a sign up on the side of the playground or on the door, the gate, that instructs that, it's off limits. People are welcome to use the other playground or the fields for their children until it's freed up. So we talked about that today.
Thank you, Councilor. Good call. Councilor Bentley. Vice Chair
And that's
Bentley.
similar to what I was going to say. I think on both fences, though, both entrances from the rec center and from that end, because the answer can't be, we'll tell them to go up to behind L&M, because if someone walked there from Maple Crest, that's, maybe not something they want to do. And, you all saw in the letter, the person was pretty upset and as a taxpayer, and you can certainly appreciate that. So I think we need to make an attempt to educate people, and maybe like we did last year with the rec field, make an attempt to have a better option too. That's the area they're talking about encloses for very small children, toddlers, and to say, well, bring them over there, there's much bigger equipment and different things there. So maybe down the road, we get a little more creative on, a couple things and get some, I'm not advocating spending a lot of money, because Jim's good at getting grants and getting things, and maybe there's another little area where some small children can go, because,
Couldn't they just put a sign up?
town fairs.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I would also say that beyond the sign, that whoever engages with the public like that, maybe give them a broader explanation than just it's a legal liability, get at it.
You know how those Fed people are.
Oh, the feds. My favorite. Any other old or new business?
Motion to adjourn?
No.
Oh.
I will entertain a motion, however, on approval of non-public minutes from 18 April.
So moved.
Number 1 and 2, there's 2 sets.
Second.
So that's on the first set? Or
First
both?
set.
Both. First set. I can't entertain discussion because they're non-public. Does anyone have discussion? Seeing none, the vote?
Counselor Wright?
Aye.
Counselor Levy? Counselor Branch?
Aye.
Counselor Carmichael? Counselor Bentley? Chairman
Aye.
Nazaro?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. I will entertain a motion on April 18th, number 2, non-public minutes.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Administrator, the vote?
Counselor Wright?
Aye.
Counselor Levy?
Aye.
Counselor Branch?
Aye.
Counselor Carmichael? Counselor Bentley?
Aye.
Chairman Nazaro?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion on the approval of non-public minutes from April 25th, 2012.
So moved.
there a
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Through the
Was-
minutes we had
I
it
was-
in our packet.
No, the 25th was, I don't think I was, that was,
You were not here then.
yeah, okay. Just want to make sure.
Seeing no discussion, the vote.
Counsel Wright.
Aye.
Counsel Levy.
Abstain.
Counsel Branch.
Aye.
Counsel Carmichael. Counsel Bentley.
Aye.
Chairman Nazaro.
Aye, motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention. Next meeting date is May 16th for the workshop.
Yes.
And councilors, I apologize, but it'll take 2 minutes.
Make a motion going to RSA 91-A, 7:32, the hiring of a person as a public employee.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are now in non-public.